where he knows things we don't know. Okay. And so just.
Okay.
give
All right.
the
Good morning, everyone.
guy Some discretion, you know?
Good morning. It's 9 a.m. We'll convene the June 21st Criminal Justice and Public Safety Subcommittee meeting. The first order of business is to approve the minutes of the May 23rd meeting. Motion by Supervisor McDevitt, second by Supervisor Driscoll. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Just to make you aware of the lineup for this morning, we'll do the assigned counsel first, then probation, emergency services, the sheriff's office, and the public defender will go last today. So begin with assigned counsel. There's one action item, a request to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Saratoga, Albany, and Schenectady counties on an assigned counsel panel collaborative. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Greger. I'm the supervising attorney for the Warren County Assigned Counsel Office. As you correctly said, we're here to seek approval to enter into a joint memorandum of understanding with Albany, Schenectady, and Saratoga counties. The agreement itself will allow us to serve as basically a regional assigned counsel collaboration between my analogs in the three other counties. Essentially allow us to pool resources with respect to trainings, recruitment and retention, mentoring program, and also possibly sharing some attorneys for a second chair program. All of the funds will be from grant funding through the either Hurrell Herring grant program or through different indigent legal service grants through the different years. So basically it allows us to allocate resources and scale up with Albany counties, Schenectady, and Saratoga counties. It's something that indigent legal services is strongly in support of. In fact, we've called the Capital District Collaborative. We actually presented statewide about 2 weeks ago at an assigned counsel summit. So the state's behind us on this, and it would be no additional cost. In fact, probably through economies of scale, we'd be saving some money. So I don't know if there's questions that people have about it.
Any questions from the committee?
Just maybe a comment or maybe a half question. But basically subscribing to the philosophy that that it's important for us as a society to provide legal services to people that need them. It's just a fundamental principle of the country we live in.
Absolutely. And it's a fundamental right within both New York State and the United States constitutions. And what this allows us to do is, without incremental costs to the taxpayers, provide better training to our attorneys. The idea being, if you have a continuing legal education program, you want to bring in several high-level speakers, they're going to cost a certain amount of money. The better the speaker, pretty much the better the money. If you're allocating that cost amongst 4 counties, it's a lot cheaper per county than if Warren County were just to absorb it or Saratoga County were just to absorb it. So at the end of the day, it also increases the quality of the representation, quality of the attorney. So that really is the driving force behind this memorandum of understanding.
Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Sieber, do you have a question?
I did more of a comment. I just wanted to thank Rob and Joy. They've been working on this program for quite some time now, and I've really enjoyed watching it grow, but watching it meet the needs and serve so many of our population. But I know oftentimes our assigned counsel office doesn't get the recognition or the appreciation it deserves. And Rob, I just wanted to say it's been nice to see this program make a difference in so many lives. And thank you for the hard work you do.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting us.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, ask for a motion, move this forward to the board. Supervisor.
So moved.
Second by Supervisor Sieber. Any further question, discussion on the issue?
Yes, one quick question for clarification. Is the approval contingent on each other county also approving the MOU, or is it the intention of the committee to move forward based on what I understand is Albany County's approval? I'm not sure if any other counties have finished the process yet.
We are the second ones to actually go through the process. Saratoga, I believe, is scheduled for later this month. Actually, I guess next month now, technically. I don't know where Schenectady is in it. Certainly, we don't have any joint continuing legal education programs planned for that exact reason right now. But I would have, obviously, I would support us being able to work alongside Albany once both MOUs are signed, and as additional counties come on board, we can continue that. But I'll leave that in the board's discretion.
So we'll move forward. All right, there was a motion, a second. Any other discussion? Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Abstain? Roger Diamond. Motion is carried. Thank you. Any other issues from assigned council? Any
I have
other?
nothing, I have nothing else. I wasn't sure if you needed me though.
Okay,
Everyone have a great day.
thank you for being here. Okay. Probation?
Let's make move on what's going on. Getting pretty good at it.
We just did a signed council and they,
Okay.
All right, we've got a few items. First is a request to enter into an agreement with Washington County Alternatives to Incarceration, the amount of $10,000 for the term April 1, 22 through March 31, 23, regarding raise the age funding. And I think we could probably do the second one unless you disagree. It's a related, this is to enter an agreement with Mediation Matters in the amount of $10,000 for the term of the same term, April through March of 23, regarding raise the age funding. So those two requests. Motion to move this forward. Supervisor McDevitt, second. Supervisor Driscoll, any discussion or question on this? Seeing none. All those in favor?
aye,
Opposed? Carried. Third request to enter in a memorandum of understanding with the Alliance for Positive Health for Narcan training and supplies at no cost to the county. Any question on this? Any further information on this you want to relay?
Sure. We've teamed up with the Alliance for Positive Health. They're going to provide Narcan training. Obviously, that's a big issue with the opioid epidemic. Not only do they provide the training, but they also supply the Narcan kits when we need them. So it's a good relationship. The Alliance also does a ton of other great things in the community. So we're happy to have that partnership. And we're looking to get a memorandum of understanding to get no cost to the county.
Great service. Motion, second. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The fourth request, a one-time payment for interpreter services in the amount of $160 to Anthony Rodriguez for Spanish translation. Any information on that?
Yes, sir. Occasionally we need a translator. In this instance, we had a youth mother who did not speak English. It's a relatively serious case and we needed a translator. We don't contract with anybody per se because the cost, we don't really use them that much, maybe 2-3 times a year. The cost for an individual to contract with the county would be cost prohibitive due to the insurance and things like that. So in the past, we've done affidavits for payment. It's worked out. In this instance, I know the county's preferred method is a contract. So we're moving forward with a one-time resolution to pay for this. I know it's not the best way to do it. Again, it's prohibitive for us to enter into contracts with a lot of people because of the cost. So we do need translators at different times. So I can't say I won't be back with another similar request.
All right, thank you. Motion,
I'll move that.
motion by Supervisor Dickinson, second. Supervisor Driscoll, any further question, discussion?
One
Supervisor
question.
Driscoll, go ahead.
good morning, Rob. Do you ever use American Sign Language interpreters? I'm just curious.
We haven't. In the past,
Okay.
we've used school teachers who we have deaf individuals, but we
Okay.
haven't. We're looking for places. I know some of it, some of the translation services are by phone. If you've ever been on a speakerphone translating, it's a mess. It's $3 a minute. I
Yeah.
mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So to have a live person there at a minimal cost, you know, it's, again, I can't enter into contract with people because they don't have the means. So
Right.
I think this is the best way. I know
Good, I agree.
protocol, but that I run into issues with, but you know, again, but I will definitely look into those. You know,
Good,
we're
thank you.
looking, actively looking.
Supervisor Dickinson.
So I watched the movie the other night. And this guy was talking to the Spanish guy and he didn't speak Spanish, so he got his phone out and he used an app. Translate it. Talking back and forth.
You know, the interesting thing is we translated some documents using Google Word that translated in Spanish. We had it reviewed and it worked out. So maybe that's an option, or we could get Rosetta Stone.
Yeah. That was a movie. It was excellent. It's called The Hustle.
Any other,
It's amazing what we can do with these.
any other questions, discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Seaver, go ahead.
Thank you. Director Yusi, I appreciate the fact that you're using a person who's fluent in Spanish and who can talk with youth, especially during, I'm sure, what was a very disturbing or perhaps very intimate details of a case. I think it's critical that we continue that face-to-face human contact to whatever extent that we can. I myself have used those translation services, and sometimes, unfortunately, they don't always work correctly or they misinterpret words. So I'm always going to be in support of a live body to be able to help our youth through their difficult times. And I appreciate you finding a resolution in that situation so quickly.
Terrific. Thank you. Any other questions, discussion items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Hi.
Carried. I believe that's all you have. Do you have anything else?
That's all I
Lee?
have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate it. Anne Marie's here for emergency services. Got two requests and a couple discussion items. The first request is a resolution request to amend Resolution 176 of 2022 to remove and replace members of the Warren County EMS Advisory Board. Anne Marie?
Yes, we're looking to appoint Shane Irwin from Bay Ridge Rescue Squad. And in that light, we're going to remove Ashley Rivers from Bay Ridge Rescue Squad and also remove Doug Wildermuth from North Queensbury Rescue Squad.
Motion to move this request forward. Supervisor McDevitt. Second. Supervisor Driscoll, any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The second request is a resolution request to approve the Warren County excessive heat plan. Anne Marie?
Yes. So this is an annex that's going to be added to the Warren County Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. And it's developed as a guide to assist Warren County agencies with managing and responding to excessive heat events.
Move this request forward. Supervisor McDevitt, second. Supervisor Bramer. Questions and discussion. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you. Can you just give us some overview of what's in there?
Sure. Some of the items that are in there, the plan will identify resources, actions, and critical issues. It'll have a section regarding monitoring public information and listing cooling centers. There's also activation levels that are listed in the plan. There's 3 phases of activation, and the levels of activation will go along and coincide with the National Weather Service's activation levels as well. So they'll kind of match that. We've also indicated that the cooling centers would be activated during phase 3. There's also some current cooling centers that we currently have listed right now is the Aviation Mall, Crandall Library, and Open Door. We're currently working with a few other towns to get some more areas on here for cooling centers. There's specific criteria that's also listed in the excessive heat plan that will detail out what is needed to become a cooling center. Also in the plan, we do have a heat index. The National Weather Service heat terms are explained in the plan, and heat-related illnesses plus cooling centers.
Thank you.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. Didn't you send us something last week, more comprehensive?
Yes, I
Yeah,
sent the
I've got to
whole,
go back to my emails and because I did read the first half of it.
Yes.
So I'll get back and read the second half. Good, okay.
yeah,
thanks.
if you have any questions after you've had some time to go through it, just give me a call.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I believe that was the last request, right? You have a couple of discussion items. First one is a community emergency response team.
Right, so our department is looking into creating a CERT team. They are developed to help educate families and individuals about preparing for potential hazards and disasters. especially ones that could have a significant impact on them as well as their communities. So we're looking to get the program started. Right now, the program will work to train individuals on fire safety, light search and rescue, team organization, disaster and medical operations.
Any questions for Emery on this? Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you. Would staff from health services also be part of this CERT team?
We can certainly work with them to see if they want to be on the team. The team is made up of volunteers.
Okay,
So it's definitely could be offered to a wide range of people within the community as well as within the county.
Any other questions on this issue? And you've got one other discussion item. It's a Warren County Office of Emergency Services mobile app.
So we have been looking at working with some companies to develop a mobile app that we can use. There are a few other counties in the area that are using mobile apps. The main thing with a mobile app is you can get alerts out on a very quick basis to people within your community, whether it's a road closure, boil water order, or a weather event, or an active shooter event. You can push this message out to people within your community as long as they've downloaded the app. Their app has a lot of other resources that are available on it. We can get alerts from FEMA, National Weather Service can get pushed through. There's also news streams that can be on it. There's video and PDF libraries. So there's a lot more. It's a very comprehensive app. So it's not just an alert app, but we were hoping that we can target tourism as well as our own residents. I think could all benefit from it.
When do you think you'd be ready to make that recommendation to the board?
Probably the next meeting.
Great.
Yep, we did some pretty comprehensive review of 3 different companies and I found the one that would give us the most functionality for the app.
Supervisor Dickinson.
Is there any cost involved?
Yes, there is a cost involved. So this particular plan that we're looking at right now, most of them will do it for a 3-year contract. This one is $6,300 per year. It is the lowest of the ones that we had looked at, while it's giving us more functionality as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Emery on this? Supervisor Driscoll.
thank you, Chairman. So 6,300, are there other capital region counties are using similar apps already?
So right now, I do know Washington County is using an app like this as well. There are some counties out west, Erie, Niagara, they also are using it. There are about 10 counties statewide that are using app programs.
Thanks.
Any other committee members? Question? Supervisor McGowan in the back, if you would do me a favor, just speak up because it's really hard for the audience.
Well, I
to
don't have
hear.
a problem doing that. Thank you very much. Emery, thank you so much. Recommendation is how or thought of reaching out to our other local counties, making sure that the app, you know, like Washington County has their own app. If we're using the same app or so they combine, but reaching out to our other surrounding counties, and especially in an emergency in this app, when you put it out, you know, we want everybody to come together quickly. So making sure maybe we can push our other surrounding supporting counties to be able to have the same app. Is that something maybe we can reach out and do?
Yeah, I could definitely look into doing that, because I know right now, I've actually subscribed to the Washington County app, so I can kind of monitor what notifications that they're pushing out. And a lot of times right now, what they're using it for is to get more COVID information out to people. So you can also use the apps for that as well. So, but yeah, it's definitely worth reaching out to see if we can get something.
And is this something that we can work through shared services? Even though it's outside our county, if, you know, if maybe, you know, is there a program out there where a bunch of counties can join together? Like, you know, let's say, like, I know, like, it's not a perfect example, but like in garbage, you call up a garbage company and say, look, we could sign up 100 people in this neighborhood, we'll get you a discount. But, you know, if we get surrounding counties, can we, you know, maybe get a discount on this app?
Sure. I am not 100% we could do it rather quickly, but it's something we can definitely look into to see if that's an option, right? Because right now there are basically three main players that are offering the app. One of them is Quick Series, and that's the one that we are looking to do for us. The other apps, some other counties have gone with the other apps, some are going with Quick Series, so it might be not so easy to kind of get them all to decide on what's going to work for them because of the different offerings that each app has.
Another follow-up. please.
Supervisor McGowan, yes.
Is there, our sheriff is here now, is Sheriff LaFar, is there an app that our sheriff is using for this to work with other? Is this something that would interest the sheriff's department too?
We don't have an application, but I can see benefits if OES had this, that we communicate regularly anyways. So if there was a public safety message to get out, the county had an application, it'd be free for us to share that with OES.
All right, great, thank you.
And, from our perspective as well, if there are any issues at the towns, if you needed us to push an alert out, just reach out to us and we can do that as well. So it would cover, every aspect of county.
Thank you,
Terrific.
Amber.
Thank you, Emery. Hopefully, next meeting, you'll be ready to make a request.
Yes.
Anything else, Emery? Supervisor, I'm sorry, the chair?
I just had one more thing to add. Sorry, it's not on the
Okay.
agenda. We do have a citizens preparedness training that's going to be coming up in July. It's going to be July 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. It will be in the HSB building, and it's going to be the first floor conference room. Red Cross will be doing the course for us.
What was the date again, please?
July 21st, 6 to 8 p.m.
Supervisor Garrity?
Yeah, I just had a question. I didn't know if any of the committee members or Anne Marie would know. Every now and then you run into a water issue in your community and you have to have special hose to get around an area. I was wondering if any of the supervisors or the mayor knows, is there any inventory of any specific hose in the county that you can use for potable water? It's different for fire hose. The DOH won't let you use fire hose to go around a break sometimes, and I was wondering if the county should consider having some of that in inventory. We have a situation where right now where we're going to have to bypass a break, and it's kind of an emergency, and we had to go out and find hose. Luckily, I have contacts in the fire industry that found me some hose. It's different from fire hose. So I just wonder if anybody had anybody, or if we should keep some here at the county for communities who run into these situations.
I'm not personally familiar with any of that stock that may be in place. Any supervisor familiar with that? Emery, is that something that you could have your office or the fire coordinator take a look at?
Yeah, I can see if our fire coordinator can take a look into that. I don't think it's anything that we have right now for equipment, but we can definitely look into it.
All right. If you can report back to us next month, that'd be terrific.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Emery? Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Sheriff, we're going to do your next. We had a request to do public defender last, so we got a couple of requests from the sheriff. First is to create 2 new positions, patrol officer 71 and patrol officer 72. We've discussed this previously. Sheriff?
Yes, this was something that was tabled last month. It was a referral item. Just returning it for this month for additional discussion if necessary, or a decision. For the members that weren't here, what we're hoping to do is to enhance the security of the Human Services Building and the Municipal Center. As it stands, we have security staff who are civilians, and we see that we're vulnerable. And fortunately, thus far, it's been just our sheriff's office, but we've been the subject of a couple of First Amendment audits. Those are citizens who come on to municipal government properties and work their way into our facilities. just to see how law enforcement will respond and react, if they'll over-respond, if they'll detain unnecessarily. And for us, we understand the rights of civilians, but we also know that there are people or groups that look to cause harm to civilians and to our government buildings. And they will hide behind this First Amendment blanket to gather intelligence on our facilities. And fortunately, the first two that we've had went okay, and we've learned from them, but we realize that, again, we are vulnerable. DSS, it seems as though we are having an increased number of persons who are coming and presenting at DSS, and they're presenting perhaps a little more agitated, and they're causing a little more hardship to the staff there. They communicate with us regularly. So it's something that, again, we've proposed to do. I think it would be a really sound decision for the county to have a uniformed armed police officer standing at the entryway to our county facilities. If you go into the front entrance by state courts, you'll find several. I mentioned it at prior meetings that, again, you look across the parking lot, you see numerous patrol cars, and you might think that there's an officer that's just ready to walk over, drive over at a moment's notice. And unfortunately, with staffing, that's just not the case. So it is something from a public safety perspective that I'm confident we need. I know that it would be of tremendous benefit, but I also know that it's up to you to decide whether or not you agree to it.
Supervisor McDevitt.
Yeah, Sheriff, I fully support your efforts in this regard, primarily because I chat with the part-time officers. I come in the motor vehicle side every morning, and they have expressed some concern relative to the safety of the building. But at the end of the day, there are things that that I don't know. And following the news today in terms of the number of shootings that occur in this country, every other day there's a shooting in this country. There's something fundamentally changing in the culture of our society. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it, but I do know that at the end of the day, you're an elected person, and you know things that I don't know. So I fully support your efforts in that regard.
Thank you. I will say to that, there's been a shift in our response, and it started in our school systems, and it carries through with our procedures and our operations. Law enforcement previously, if there was an active shooter, if there was a threat that presented in a school or in a public facility, we would pull up, we would muster, we would wait for a certain number of reinforcements, come up with a plan and move. Today, the first officer that arrives, that officer is going to move. They're going to get as quickly as they can to that threat. If there's gunfire, they want to get to the gunfire so that if the person shooting will no longer want to shoot at our children, they'll no longer want to shoot at your employees. They'll want to turn and they'll want to direct their fire at us. And if we can direct their fire for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, oftentimes a situation is concluded by then. At that point, we'll have additional officers here. And I don't want to, no one knows if or when this is going to occur. We have had an armed person come on to our I'm sorry, I just.
Good, I'm listening.
Okay. We have had an armed person come on to our facilities and point a firearm at a police officer. If they're willing to come on to our facilities and point a firearm at a police officer, I'm confident they'd be more than willing to do that with a civilian. We had a gentleman that came into DSS from another county, and he presented with some mental health issues and was a real handful for DSS. And our security staff, they're civilians and they're wonderful people. A lot of retired police officers, but Supervisor McGowan mentioned possibly we arm them. But in this day and age in law enforcement, it's so very complicated. Titles and positions. The criminal procedure law only allows for certain trained members, peace officers, police officers to be armed and perform specific functions. I know that we've talked going through police reform about use of physical force and the requirements that are placed on us as far as training. And we just cannot get to that point where you can have someone that has the same level of training, resources, and capabilities as a uniformed police officer in the roles that we have currently in our facilities.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. This past week, Board of Supervisors heard from a number of county employees from diverse departments within the county. And we heard their message. But in my opinion, it wasn't all about money. It was about the environment, feeling safe, feeling wanted. And I think that this opportunity demonstrates our ability to provide an additional benefit or strengthen the benefit, which is one of the principal rights that we all have, and that's right to be safe. And I know that there's, I've talked about the fact that there's individuals who work untraditional hours, nursing staff and DSS staff and others, OFA staff who are in here on weekends, doing paperwork for their home visits and those types of things. Again, I think any opportunity that we can provide to improve the safety for our employees, as well as guests who come here for different services and stuff, I would support that.
Thank you. I'll say this, we get 11 meetings. Our sheriff's office gets 11 meetings a year with this group. And I'm not trying to rush you to make a decision, but things are committed to by resolution and they can be removed by resolution. If this is something that we agree to, we have patrol officers that come and go annually. We have several retirements per year. If you give it a shot, we're going to hire patrol officers. The only thing that I would ask is if you give it a shot 6 months a year and you feel like you're not getting the bang for your buck, let us know. And by resolution, you can remove those positions. We'll have a couple retirements. We'll have those patrol officers go on the road and we'll rethink the way that we secure our facilities. But I feel it's helpful to our employees, our visitors, to at least give it a shot and see if we can make them feel a little more secure. There's a report that was put out, much in that report, the Needham report that came through self-insurance. It deals with infrastructure and changing of the way pedestrians come and go in our facilities. That's a little outside our wheelhouse. We would appreciate to have a seat at the table, but I think this would be a very rapid way to address and with great confidence to know that our facilities are going to be immediately more secure.
Sheriff, we got several questions. I just have one quick one for you. If this moved to the full board and was approved, how long would it actually take you to hire and deploy these people on site?
If we started from scratch and hired and deployed, it would probably take around 3 months because we have to go through the civil service process of recruitment, interviews, and the background process, psychological examination. We have in July, we'll have some recruits coming out of the academy that will help supplement our staffing somewhat. And speaking about it with the undersheriff, we are thinking that it may be possible to be able to move in this direction as soon as August or September. We will move and shift things around. The only significant event that's coming up in the month of September will be the Adirondack Car Show. That's another all hands on deck event that will create a little hardship for us. But beyond that, looking at staffing and scheduling, we think we could reasonably do it by August or September.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Bramer?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as a supervisor for the county, my obligation is to think about the whole county and all of our county employees. And as my colleague from Glens Falls mentioned, we did have maybe 100 people there at the meeting last week. You were there in attendance. And I have a hard time increasing personnel costs when we have existing personnel here who are telling us that wages are too low, they need to be paid more. And then we're talking about adding on new employees. And there's many situations across many departments where they're asking for new positions and they're needed. We need to make sure our government is working effectively and fully. One of the things that you and I talked about on the phone, which I appreciate you taking my phone call and working through some of those things, is that I don't think we need, to have the security officers who are there if we are going to be supplementing them with additional patrol officers. And you mentioned that you would be able to not necessarily eliminate those positions, which I get. You want to wait until those people are retiring through attrition. but eliminating shifts.
Correct.
Can you speak to that? And what would be the cost savings of eliminating shifts for security officers who would not need to be there, like doubling up on those particular spots?
Yes, so a part-time employee, if we have 40 part-time security officers or 4, their cost to the county is not any greater. It's just the number of shifts that they work. There are no fringe benefits. There's nothing additional other than their part-time salary for hours worked. So what we would do is we would lessen the number of hours and shift assignments for part-time employees. I believe that the range of salaries is between 19 or a little over $20 an hour for our part-time security officers. So the offset would be 1 in each building for shifts for 40 hours a week at a rate of around $20 per hour.
Supervisor Seaver?
Thank you. I'm trying to take notes as we're talking. Sheriff, I think this is an important discussion that we've had for so many years. I remember when I joined the Board of Supervisors in 2014, this too was a discussion we were having then. I've been a little frustrated over the years that these Needham reports that we get on our vulnerabilities and how safe are we as a county, they kind of go on a shelf, and that was frustrating all those years. So last year was the first opportunity I had with our leadership team to look at it and to ask for a new update on that. We do have one from about a decade ago, and many of us on this board might actually remember, well, Peter, you must remember, years ago, we had a big debate over whether we should even have security at the front doors with the magnetometers so that people coming through were screened. And this board said, no, they didn't want to do that. I totally oppose that. I thought it was time that we be proactive and preventive and not be regretful in the end. But that was really important to this board, which is why I've continued to say that I don't think this should be a quick or a rapid discussion, that it should be one that we engage our public in and ask them how they're feeling about it, because I would love to see it be a unanimous vote that we follow the recommendations in our reports, but we historically haven't done that. And what I'm not hearing today, and I hope that we're going to hear it, and I know we talked about it at previous meetings, is hearing from Needham on these safety assessments and from Amy Kloop, who has been such an advocate to making sure that our community here, our family here, that we're safe. And, you know, you mentioned an incident just a few months ago, but yet our policies and procedures internally here, we didn't notify our employees. We didn't have a quick way through our county administrator's office to work through what those buttons were that we needed to push, or the microphone or the code words, because we just established it. And so, Jim, to your point about having a seat at the table, we had a big meeting with a lot of people at it last year, and I appreciated the intel and the recommendations you had on how do we do an active shooter drill? How do we make our community safer? But that's where it stopped. And so we haven't had just 11 meetings. Last year, Jack met every single week with the sheriff's office. We continue to try to find ways that we could address the concerns that were important to our community. And then looking at this report and looking a decade ago at the other reports, and in taking time to really think about how do other counties do this? What does their municipality and their security look like? And I haven't seen that comparison or that description or the plan of what it would cost here today. But Dennis, I was saying, you probably remember years ago when we had a big debate over how supervisors felt about should we secure the entrances, you know, and how that did fail back then. But that needs to be part of this discussion. Brian LaFleur had a free I think I say the word wrong, don't I? Magnetometer.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm right. Okay. Small speech impediment. I usually get it wrong. So he had it for free leaving the probation department back when we changed those over, and this board said no. So I think we have more work to do before we jump in and say, well, let's add 2 more patrol officers that are armed to secure the buildings, when we also have remote areas up north that are part of our responsibility. And we also had recommendations in this report that last year we talked about having a police officer who was in uniform or a sergeant at arms assigned to our meetings. But yet, you know, this year it's been determined that that's not necessary. So we aren't really following these recommendations. And I think that's a broader discussion. But to go back to what other counties are doing, Washington County, and with all due respect, I know you said many of these other counties do have armed officers, but a lot of it's picked up at the expense of the state. So wherever there's a court building, they do have our court security officers. Washington County has a deputy, but they don't on top of it have security paid municipal, like at the county level, they have state court officers and then one deputy, but not security on top of it. I think we do have a problem with our DMV entrance. I think that unfortunately, this is a big pet peeve of mine. We're using security officers to manage appointments for DMV over the last couple of years. And that's a administrative failure here in our office and with Pam Vogel at DMV. And that's not something, Sheriff, I'm saying has anything to do with the responsibilities of your security officers, because I know they are stepping up and helping every single way they can. As you know, every month I try to nominate them for Employee of the Month. And I love the fact that in your view, every single officer should have that recognition. So I support doing something, but I am concerned when I hear towns like asking for police presence at their meetings. Is that going to go at the shoulder of the cost of the taxpayer here at the county? Or are we going to have intermunicipal agreements, say with Lake George? If you want that, will Lake George be paying for that service? Will the city of Glens Falls be reimbursed for their police presence through the Glens Falls Police Department? There's so many nuts and bolts to this and cost benefit analysis here. I see the benefit. I just need to know the cost. And in this job description, I don't see who's assigned where. What will be those additional duties? How will they rotate between all these different jurisdictions, across our entire county? And how are we going to best secure both what's urban and what's rural? So my questions are still the same as they were the last meeting and the meeting before that. But Jim, they're honestly the same as they were in 2014. And I'm hopeful that this is the year that we continue. Maybe we don't have 11 meetings, maybe we have 22 meetings, but let's make this a priority. Let's hear from Needham. Let's get behind this and see what other counties are bringing to the table for that cost. Because this is an important decision, but it's one that will impact our community for decades to come. And I think we need to be really careful about it. That's in a nutshell. And I know I sent a lengthy email with all of those points, and we'll continue to be part of whatever solution that we can bring to this table and do our homework on it. And thank you, Jim, for continuing to make this be part of our discussion. It's long overdue.
Supervisor McGowan, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Sheriff, I know we did discuss it, and I hear what you're saying with the officers, but when I was brought up, your immediate response is that absolutely this will not happen. But I was just listening to you speaking about maybe up and coming retirees, to take over these positions and that. And isn't the majority of our people, hear me out, isn't the majority of the people that we have at our entrances now retired police officers?
Yes.
And how difficult is it to retrain them to, because I'm coming up in facilities, I'm going to be talking about more securing. We have 3 weak entrances to this building, and there's one that doesn't have micrometer metal detectors. And I have a plan how we can do that on the front. The other 2 do have metal detectors, all right, but they're no armed officers at that. So what is really those metal detectors doing? I always thought of just a presence of an officer with a gun on, to me, would deter more people, or thinking twice about entering, not knowing the training. And I'm not saying this, not knowing the training that they have, but just by seeing them, I know growing up, seeing an officer with a gun, there was total respect there. These times are gone. Now they're not scared, and it hurts me. But we have these officers now part-time. I have talked to them; they'd be willing to carry a gun. I guess my question is if we got to retrain and bring on officers, it's going to take 3 months and bring them up to this and that. Why can't we do that to some, at least one of those officers on those doors?
For the same reason that we would have issues with any other retiree, and we've talked about it, there'd be salary restrictions for a part-time employee. They want to work part-time hours. Our plan, and it's a long-term plan, is to get away from part-time employment in public safety. It's not a best practice. And if I misspoke in this meeting, or if it was incorrectly received, I would not like to use part-time employees to secure our facilities, to perform law enforcement functions. It's really not sustainable. The requirement on our police officers now, the expectations for their training, it would far exceed what a part-time employee would or could be willing to do. And speaking, I'm sure they're all well-intended, and when you ask these retirees if they would carry a gun for us, I'm sure that they probably would. What I'm saying to you is they cannot. And I would like to move in a direction where we have all sworn members securing our facilities and do it in a crawl, walk, run fashion. It will take not next year, but years to get us to that point where we have a very good, sound security unit with their own set of specific policies and procedures that is sustainable.
Well, in that case, I would be looking at this number one action agenda from patrol officers 71 and 72 and add a 73, because we have 3 points of entry. Probation is a big one. All right. Now, if that's something that the probation department has to work on, but those are our 3 weaknesses. That area over there, to me, is is a higher priority. All right. And then I will work in is, we have a lot of glass doors. I come to any glass door I want. All right. So can anybody else. So in that case, along with the metal detectors, we need cameras on all these glass doors and a big monitor screen and someone that's going to monitor those. And that's something that, we can have those monitoring screens at every station. So if we put an armed officer and a retiree officer, so there's 2, so one can address the action and one can address getting back up and help here immediately, hopefully using the app that we're looking into. That's what I foresee. Also on these Megatrons, the metal detectors, all right, especially like in the DMV, I'm thinking as we can get outdoor ones, all right, until we can get a canopy or whatever built out there. But that goes off, that inner door locks, all right? The only way that door locks is by a button to let that one person in, all right? Or an officer goes out there and does, you know what I'm saying? These are some of the procedures that I see that we need, that we can do it simply, but I'm going to be working on. But I thank you for explaining why, and I really don't have a problem doing this but I feel sorry for the retirees that are looking for a little extra, but if we can have one in one, and it's up to the chairman, or the committee is looking into really 3 officers and not 2, because we need one at DDS or DSS, DMV, and probation.
Okay, Supervisor Driscoll has been waiting.
Thank you, Chairman. We've heard from the sheriff that it's not likely that if everything went well, and we approved this and everything went well, we're looking at after Labor Day to put boots to the ground, so to speak. So if we go ahead and start doing the things that are necessary, civil service and all those types of advertising and interviewing and everything, as the sheriff said, if down the road, if it's not working, we've got 2 options. We can look to tweak it, add an item, delete an item from the work program, or just gut it altogether. So we're not going to know if it works until we try it. And I think the investment in trying it is worth it. If it's not working, yeah, certainly get rid of it, but let's give it an opportunity. And during that time also, we'll have time to possibly answer some of the questions that have been raised here today.
Supervisor Dickinson.
I'm going to take that as a motion and I'll second that.
We've got a few more questions before we get to that. Supervisor Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was mentioned earlier by my colleague from Queensbury, this Needham report.
when was the last time that report was issued and reviewed?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
The report, just let me pull it up. That report was done at my request last year. It says I asked for it as one of the first things I did as chair. It took 10 months to have the assessment done. On November 1st, it was issued. And then we started these team meetings to have a discussion about how we could start implementing. And there is a laundry list of concerns in each department, but also the Board of Supervisors, things I think we could implement fairly quickly. Some we already have. But prior to that, there was another Needham report, and I just emailed Amy to get it. That was years ago that also addressed many of these same things. But Dennis walked out, but I just leaned over to him and said, do you have security at your town? And he said, yes, and they do have a magnetometer. And although he did say he thought he had two, I thought maybe he'd want to give one to the county. But maybe there's some ways that we could start this implementation process, you know, in steps in a multifaceted way to address all of these concerns. But I don't know what has been addressed and what hasn't. But to answer your question, the most recent one was given to the county administrator on November 16th, 2021.
Would it make sense to this committee to review that within the next couple of meetings and assess the information that's in there? The other point I want to bring up is that it was mentioned by the supervisor from City of Glens Falls. Well, if we're not happy with the process or the program that's been established, we'll abolish it. How do we evaluate? What would be our basis to evaluate the program? And I'd like to know how we would do that. How could we determine down the road that it's been a success or a failure? So I'd like to dust off that report, or at least spend some time on that report and find out what they've recommended, what we've implemented. And the next question I'm going to raise is, and it was brought up by another supervisor from Queensbury, is 2 or 3 patrol officers going to be enough? What have they indicated in other reports? I'd like to be very sure that we're going to move in the right direction if we're going to do this at all. The other question I do have, one more question for the sheriff. Are these positions that you're talking about today currently in your existing 2022 budget?
They're not in the table of organization, but we could absorb the positions without having to ask for additional funding in the 2022 budget. Especially starting out this late in the year.
Supervisor Brayman, did you have a follow-up?
Well, I just had a, thought of what Supervisor McGowan said earlier about crawling through this. He wants to jump right to 3, but then from Supervisor just go about sort of like a pilot program. But I would ask for those who made the motion to reduce it to one officer and give it a try. See how that goes, and then we can evaluate. I'm not exactly sure what the evaluation criteria would be, but
Supervisor McGowan.
that's my request.
I respectfully, Supervisor Bramer will really push for 3. If we're gonna do this, let's do it. And I see it, and it's coming. And if you do 1, we can start at DMV, all right? At least coming up in county facilities, I will be start implementing, getting micrometers for the DMV. And like I mentioned, the cameras and the automatic locking and stuff like that through for security. But I really do foresee this working. We do have to do it. The other night, Wednesday night, we had a lot of people here. Thank God, most of them were our employees, and I really didn't think twice, but there could have been an instance where it went wrong. And, our sheriff was there, but he looked pretty comfortable. No, I'm only kidding. But, we didn't have the presence of an armed officer. So I would like to see what we could do to come up with the money and I do support, we're gonna secure it. Let's secure this building and let's do it on really our three weakest points and cammering up all our other entrances where they can be monitored.
Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you. I would just ask those that made the motion to think about, do you have all the information that you need to go out to the public and explain this at this point? I see the job descriptions, but again, I don't see how where it says anything about being assigned to the Board of Supervisors, to the municipal centers, to the other locations. I see the salary, but I don't see the cost that's going to go into this for uniforms or for training or for cars or for equipment. I think this is a larger cost and it's worth it. Don't get me wrong. I think it's important to improve our security, but I don't know how we can just jump to saying 3 or 4 is 4 enough? I mean, without saying, what about the basics in these reports? What about the fact that for years we keep kicking the can down the road? Why are we gonna just rush it? Why can't we have more meetings? Why can't we say this is important and have a meeting with facilities and with Amy? I asked for this last month. Why can't we do joint meetings? And that's where I'm coming from on this. Maybe we refer it to facilities and then refer it over to Amy's committee and have these joint meetings where we're talking about the real full picture here. Because unless all of you can tell me you've read these reports and you know what's in them, I agree with Jim from the perspective that we need to do something, but to jump like this, you don't just get rid of positions in Warren County. That's not how that works. We don't say to people, well, the funding went away. You no longer have a job. Just like ARPA, we're dealing with this now. We're making decisions that are going to impact our community. And it almost sounds like Brad's talking about going into lockdown mode. I don't want that for our community, but I want it to be safe. And I want our employees to feel secure. But that's a broader discussion, and we're still not talking about what's going on in other municipalities. How have they come up with a balance? We're behind. I know that. But couldn't we have more intel, like more evidence, more data to make these decisions?
Well, first of all, I don't think we're jumping into it because we've discussed this now for several months. And the report has been in place for quite some time. So there have been committees in place that could have taken this report up, whether consider it, implement it, or reject it. That's been sitting there.
Right.
And I think all of us have some position in reference to that report. Before I finish, Supervisor Garrity.
Yeah, I fully support what the sheriff wants to do about hiring the deputies to be at the doors. Most of the times when we go to other counties, this is what we're greeted with, armed police officer. And that's what we see. And the chairman did ask everybody to dust off and read the report a month ago. So we've all had time to find the report and read it over and see the recommendations from Needham. Number one, you're not going to discuss your security measures in open session. There's security measures for a reason. You're not going to share them with the public about how you're going to control the security here. As far as the individual towns, I don't know what you're talking about. Have patrols go to individual towns. I don't know. You know that each town is done differently. But this is time to do this. If somebody gets hurt, then we're all going to be clamoring that we should have done this. We should have talked. We've talked enough about it. He's come in with a proposal. It's up to us as a board of supervisors either to adopt it or reject it. Simple as that. No more talk. We've got a lot of talk. We got a lot of data. That's the way I feel about it, and that's my opinion.
Thank you, Supervisor Seaver.
Then let's go into executive session. Let's really talk about these reports because talk is cheap. This has been around for years. You want to talk? I'll talk about an open session, but we were told we would talk about this in executive session today. I came prepared with a report. We were told we would find out what things had been done and what things had not been done. So, and if you're gonna make a motion and put 2, 3 armed officers in, then make a motion to include the magnetometers in that. Make a motion to adopt every single cost that needs to go into this report to fix it. But you're right, Chairman Drowsy, it's been around for a while. It is a responsibility of all of us, and it stopped in January. No one did anything about it. So here we are months later saying, well, let's just solve it really quick and we'll add more officers. We are forgetting all these other things that are in that report. So let's go through it. Where's Amy? Where's Needham? Let's spend the time.
I don't think a lot of what you're saying, I agree with, okay? That I do think we should get back into that report, look at it, but let's not mix what the issues are here in terms of what there's a request to add armed security based on our elected official and a law enforcement professional. Based on his experience, here's a recommendation. I look at that report and anything else that we're talked about as a supplementer that would complement to the level of security in our facilities. It doesn't take away. If we do one thing, doesn't mean we can't do everything else that's in that report, at least consider it. But you heard the sheriff say this is going to take at least a couple of months to hire people, train them, deploy people. You asked about salaries and cars. I mean, the sheriff within his purview, he can deploy people where he feels they have to be deployed. I think that answer is clear. If he needs to deploy them somewhere, they get deployed. If it's here or if it's some community. I just don't see this complete separation. And unfortunately, I think that's the way it's being viewed. It's review everything or don't do anything. That's the opinion I'm getting. Unless we look at the report, we look at what the sheriff's requesting, we take opinions of the board, we get the public. Unless we do all that, we don't do anything.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Okay.
That's a mischaracterization of what I'm saying. I'm saying I think there are multiple steps that we could take here today. We should be taking more than just one then. To your point, add in some other measures. If it's going to take until August or September, what are you doing until then? Some of these things are free to fix. They don't cost any money and we're still not doing that.
I agree with you, and I would be happy to work on that report with this committee or any other committee to say, what can we do? But we have a request, and now this has been multiple meetings that we've had the same request. Are we going to move this to the board for further consideration? It's not going to happen based on what this committee says. Or not.
We have a motion on the floor. Well, I'm going to make a motion if we don't yet.
We don't.
We don't.
I made the motion. I thought that,
Supervisor Driscoll did make a motion. Supervisor Dickinson second that motion. Is there any further discussion? Any question on it? All those in favor of the motion?
aye.
Staying.
Aye. Abstain, opposed?
I'm opposed to the 2.
I'm opposed to the 2.
Okay, we do not have 4 votes in favor, so the motion fails to move forward. Supervisor Bramer.
I would like to go into executive session to discuss about the safety issues that the sheriff apparently needs to tell us about, not in public.
All right, Supervisor Seaver, do you have something else?
I just was gonna make a motion right before that, that we please refer to, I don't know where this needs to go, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like a joint meeting with facilities, but I'd like a motion for the magnetometers that we've discussed for over a decade now to go forward. It's a small step, but it's action. And I don't know the cost on it. I'd like to know the cost, and I don't have it here today, but if we could please make a motion for that to be sent to facilities. And then to come to the full board for our consideration, whether we need 1 or 2, like a formal request over there.
Okay, so we had a motion to go to executive session. Let me just hold that for a second. We have a motion to move this issue of magnetometers to facilities. There is a second for that. Supervisor McDevitt, any question on it? Any further discussion? All those in,
Just clarify that the basis would be under section 105A of the Public Officers Law, which would be a matter which will imperil the public safety if disclosed.
We're not there yet.
that's for the executive session. Yeah, I'm just asking for the motion on the magnetometer.
Sorry.
We had a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of moving this issue to the Facilities Committee?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
All right. And we have a motion to move to executive session. Let me ask the sheriff one thing. You've got one other item. And we're going to go to executive session, but time is getting late. I want to be respectful to the other committees that are coming up. I'd like to get this other issue on the table, the request on the table, and then we can go in executive session. And then after that, Sheriff, you could be excused. So you've got a request to enter to an agreement with Six Flags Great Escape to provide periodic assignment of dedicated police services in the theme park. And just give us a brief explanation.
Yes, this is a service we've provided since 2015. They periodically request to have patrol officers within their park serving as police officers. It's a budget neutral item. This year, they have contracted with a private service, so they're not asking us to come in at the start of the season. We will not be in there likely through the summer season, but they have expressed an interest in the fall during Fright Fest that they may need some officers or some of our support. This is why it's coming in late. We couldn't offer that support if we don't have the agreement in place. So this is an agreement that we've had, and it may be something we do not use, but if we needed it, I wanted to make sure we had it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Supervisor McDevitt. Is that a second, Supervisor Seaver? Okay. Any question, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Supervisor Seaver.
I do have a question before executive session unrelated
Go ahead.
to executive session, if I may.
Go ahead.
Sheriff, we heard earlier from Anne Marie about an app. And I know that your office does use an app or used to use an app, right?
There was an app that was
Yeah.
purchased through a prior administration and again, trying to be fiscally responsible. I don't want to misspeak for OES and the benefits there. But it was an annual expense of about $7,000. And we have other projects and programs and things that we do. And an application is only as good as the number of people that you get to commit to it. If they're not enrolled, if you don't have cell service, if something goes down, there's a catastrophic event. If they can't access the app, they can't get the information. So we made a decision as an administration that it was not for us money well spent. Again, I'm not misspeaking for OES and Anne Marie. I hope that it is beneficial to her and county residents. I think if we have one within the county, if you looked at that and maybe cut it in half and the sheriff's office through our emergency communications could share and utilize that, I see that there could be a benefit for them. But
That's
for
what I
us,
wondered. Is that something you think that maybe you could speak to her about a shared service with that app? I mean, I know before there was concerns over that cost benefit. I appreciate you being financially or fiscally responsible with that $7,000 or $6,000. But if the app's maybe service has changed and more people have access, my thought was, would you mind speaking to her, then letting us know if you think that's a worthwhile venture that the two of you could share that with for emergency services?
I'm just going to tell you right now, if they get it and they utilize it, we're going to jump on board. We're going to share messages through them. We communicate together all the time anyways, fire, EMS, countywide messages. So we will have the need. We are 24/7. OES is kind of 24/7. They're always available and on call, but we have somebody actually answering a telephone countywide 24/7. So I know that we will be an emergency contact point and we will work collectively and we will utilize that app.
Okay, thanks for touching base with her on it.
All right, thank you. We have a motion by Supervisor Bramer to enter into executive session. Was there a second for that?
I'll second it.
Second. Any discussion on that? And the reason would be public justification of Public Officers Law 105.1.c. That's matters which will imperil public safety if disclosed. So we have a second. Any discussion? Question?
And obviously including the sheriff in the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
One opposed. All right, well.